Alright guys, so we finished up the book of Numbers today, and basically the last few chapters just do a quick summary of everything that has kind of occurred in the book, but also add some detail, including the exact locations where the Israelites came out of Egypt, where they stopped, where these different occurrences happened that are mentioned in more detail in the book. But overall, something that had kind of stood out to me and God had kind of laid on my heart this morning was, obviously we've talked about how specific everything is, giving specific locations and specific dates and all of these things that can be verified, to substantiate the fact that they're legitimate and that they're real and that these things occurred. But like I had said in the very beginning when I started this study, I wanted to see how I wanted to kind of test a theory, so to speak. It was something that God had laid on my heart about the similarity between the Israelites being drawn out of the world, um, Egypt being the world, being drawn out of the world, living this quote unquote Christian life in the wilderness, and God is bringing them through these trials and sufferings and things like this, and then delivering them to this place of rest, which some kind of picture as heaven, but I don't think that's the case. This place of rest was this place of peace and joy, um, before they get to heaven, because we saw how their relationship with God still continued here on this earth, even though they had messed up a lot. So one of the things that, as I was kind of doing my study this morning, I got an email. I follow the Desiring God from John Piper, and I got an email from his website, and coincidentally, let's see if I can. Coincidentally, it says "My Joy in the Desert." I can't figure out how to turn the camera around. Anyway, and the thing that stood out to me was just this one quote. He's talking about Peter, and Peter is quoted in 1 Peter 4, saying that, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were to happen to you, but rejoice." And the part that really had kind of stood out was right at the very end of that section. He says something that really kind of resonated with me, and it was, "Our prayer in the desert is not simply for strength and survival, but for joy. Only Christians can truly rejoice in trials because only Christians find more of God there." And that was something that was pretty significant because, I know for myself, my family, some of the things that we've been through, even in the last 5-10 years, all the trials and the troubles and things like that, they haven't built up a resentment in my heart to push me away from God. What they've done is they've drawn me closer to Him. And I think about that in the context of the Israelites in the desert, wandering the wilderness, and certain of them had the same occurrences, and we talked about that with Moses, and we talked about that with Caleb and Joshua, and how even though they faced these difficulties, they were drawn closer to them, showing where their heart truly lied. It wasn't in their circumstance. It wasn't in what God could do for them. It was in God Himself. Um, and that was something that had really stood out. And obviously, God kind of working through everything, even for today's devotion, to have us finish up the book, finish up the summary, finish up the whole study, and do so on the same day that I received this email from John Piper talking about being in the desert and so on and so forth. So anyway, I wanted to point that out and think about that quote, that being a Christian means that the trials and the troubles that we face don't push us away from God. They draw us closer to Him. So Just wanted to share that with you guys. God bless.